Welcome to the Top Secret Wedding Podcast, and today's top secret tip is when you're posting on socials, tag everybody that you can. It's only going to help you.
Want to learn why word of mouth marketing is so important? Listen to this episode.
This is the Top Secret Wedding Podcast, where we share top secret tips to help you take your wedding game to the next level.
I'm Annika, and I'm a wedding coordinator, enthusiast, and venue manager for one of the best venues in Idaho.
I'm Chris, and I'm a DJ, master of ceremonies, and all-around lover of weddings.
We're on a mission to improve weddings and wedding professionals everywhere.
All right, so today we're talking about marketing through word of mouth, which is only kind of marketing because it's just the natural extension of you doing a good job. But I think it's worth talking about because there are some things that I think can set you in the right direction.
Oh, for sure. I completely agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about why word of mouth is important. What would you say?
Yeah, well, I think word of mouth, honestly, it's so much more valid than any other type of marketing, you know?
What do you mean?
So if someone, if I were to come to you, let's start over. If you wanted to go get frozen yogurt,
Yeah.
naturally you probably go to Google, type frozen yogurt, you look at reviews, kind of, they help steer you, but you're kind of just making a blind decision.
Yeah, that's true.
But if I came to you and I said, oh my goodness, I just had the best frozen yogurt of my life, you have to go to da-da-da-da place.
Yeah, right.
Are you going to go to one that you just found on Google, or are you going to go to the one your friend suggests?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
That's my thing. If someone suggests something, that's like gold to me. You find your friends that you're like, oh, they've never steered me wrong.
Yeah.
And if that's what they tell me, then that's gold, and I'm already sold. The business doesn't do anything to sell me on that.
Right. And the funny thing about it is people are so excited to give a recommendation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even if I've seen people recommend vendors that are really good and vendors that are far less good.
Yeah.
And just because I've worked with them or I've seen their work, and one is much better than the other. But people are recommending both really strongly. Like, this is the best person I've ever worked with. And I'm like, really? So people are willing, if you're able to get into that person's brain as this is my guy for this service. I think people are going to be excited to recommend that.
Yeah. Well, and just on the flip side of that, with not recommending someone, that's the thing too, is someone, if they have a bad experience with you, they're going to be very quick to not recommend you, And so I just think word of mouth is so pure and important in getting business and being recommended, or destroying your business and not getting recommended.
Yeah, I think so too. For me, it leads to better clients, right? On the business side, I think it really leads to having clients that fit who you are. Sometimes people will post on Facebook and say, hey, looking for a DJ. I just saw somebody post just yesterday about it. I'm looking for a DJ and our budget is really low. And somebody recommended me and they said, well, we looked into him and he doesn't fit our budget. And I'm thinking, this is good. This is because they're having a conversation with somebody else instead of me having to have that conversation.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't take any of your time. They're literally doing that research and conversation instead of you coming and taking your valuable time and saying, well, this is why you should invest with me. Oh, I'm not in your budget, blah, 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 blah. It just saves you time and money.
Yeah. So I think it's good when people know exactly what you do, because then they can tell other people, yeah, he's a good fit, or no, he's not a good fit.
Yeah, agreed.
The other thing I think is it's free.
Yeah.
This costs you nothing.
Yeah.
We've tried Google Ads one time when we were launching a new brand.
Yeah.
And I just found it was far more valuable to have relationships with people, and then those people can recommend your service.
I agree. I swear this is one of my life sayings, but life is all about who you know.
Totally.
That's just, life's all about who you know. And so even making and building those relationships with people and clients, it's all about who you know. You don't ever know who someone is or who someone knows.
Yeah.
And you just never know what those connections are going to bring.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's free, and just maintaining those relationships in our line of work is just maintaining a healthy work environment, I think.
I agree. And I think it's so important too to mention just being genuine with those relationships. You know, people, we always say people are great BS detectors.
Yeah.
And they're going to read so fast if it's not genuine.
Totally.
You know, so just be, we always say this, just be a good person.
Be a good person. I don't know why this is so difficult, but the other thing is that you're doing your job already. And every time I go out to work, it's advertising for potential clients.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, like I said at the beginning, it's a natural extension of what you do. So if you're really trying to do a good job, then potential clients are going to see that and possibly hire you.
Yeah. Well, and I think this goes into the same idea that we always talk about of how, you know, we've talked a lot that, on wedding day, you're always on stage.
Yeah.
But in reality, that goes to every day of your life.
Yeah.
You don't know who recognizes you. I mean, there are times it is so random, but I'll be in like the grocery store or something, and it has happened with LaBelle. It happens more with Ice Palace.
Yeah.
But because I got on a story or something, they're like, you work for Ice Palace.
Yeah.
And so like, you just never know who's watching you.
Yep.
And so just how you always present yourself is how you're presenting your business.
Yeah. We may do an episode on this, but I think, you know, especially your online presence, that really counts as well. Because if at a wedding, you're, you know, super nice and really open and all that, but then the second you step on your social feed, it's super political, way left or way right, doesn't really matter. If you're really extreme and you're like posting all these, like anytime somebody posts like recommends a DJ that I don't know, like I'll go stalk them a little bit, you know? I don't know who they are. And it's so shocking to me that people that say he's the best DJ in the world, I can't find a single picture of them DJing. I can't find a single thing of them talking about DJing. And that's okay. You don't have to make DJing your life.
Right.
But when there's nothing, and when everything else is like posting, I just wouldn't be comfortable with this person at my wedding. You know, representing me. It's just be wary, or just be cognizant of what you're posting on your socials, because people are stalking you.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we do this. So I think, you know, first of all, just do a good job.
Be a good person. Do a good job.
Do a good job. If you're not doing a good job, then you're opening, nobody's going to want to hire you. I mean, it's just that.
Right. Well, and I think it just goes so beyond, you know, we've always talked about, we're very passionate with what we do in this industry, as I think most people are in this industry.
I would hope so.
It's not a half-given industry. But instead of just doing a good job, we always look for ways to do an exceptional job.
Yeah.
And that is going to be what people are going to recommend. You know, they're not thinking, oh, well, I had this experience with this DJ. He was fine. He was mediocre.
Right.
But I'd recommend him. Like, that's not on the forefront of their mind. Now, if you go out of your way and provide an exceptional experience, that's when they're going to be like, oh my goodness, you have to check out DJ Chris Davis. Like, it was amazing. So
yeah, I always like to look at reviews too. I know we're talking about word of mouth, but I like to look at reviews, and sometimes the difference in reviews is interesting, because in one, like, he played all the right music and he was so fun, and then other times, like, I pride myself on this, so I'll be a little prideful, but on a lot of our reviews, they're more emotional. They're like,
it's an emotional
this
day.
guy is such a great guy, and it feels so good to, you know, really put your heart into something and for somebody to recognize that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that comes through. I think people see that. If you're really passionate and you go above and beyond, I think that they're gonna recognize that.
And I think it goes beyond just the day. You know, a lot of times with reviews, good or bad, we will get reviewed not necessarily just on the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even mention the day. It's a lot of the before the day. or after the day. You know, it's your performance throughout the initial contact all the way to the end is what people are experiencing.
Yeah.
Even if someone doesn't end up booking you and, you know, they choose someone else, they can leave a review based on your initial contact and whether they want to recommend you or not.
Yep.
I think you mentioned on a previous episode that someone had reached out to book with you because...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you should explain.
Yeah, they reached out to me and they were just looking for a DJ. We weren't available, but I did my best to help him find somebody else.
Yeah.
And he left a review saying this guy, we couldn't hire him, but he was awesome.
Exactly. And that's still going to be a good, you know, I guarantee you they told people that word of mouth as well. And so even though they didn't end up booking you, that's still word of mouth marketing.
Yeah, definitely. I think some other things that you can do is just keep in touch. You know, if you have a relationship with your couple, then that relationship shouldn't just stop the day that their wedding happens. So you should keep in touch. I love seeing my couples progress through life. Like one of my favorite things is when I see them like we're pregnant, you know, like, and they're like growing. I love it. So just keeping that relationship open.
I think, you know, we've touched on this before, but like it is such an emotional day and such a huge part of their life to be a part of that to just cut it right after is just so hard, you know? Yep. You are playing an intricate part on the biggest day of their life.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Some other things to think about when you are when you're looking at these gigs that are coming to you from word of mouth. Sometimes you can get referrals from somebody that you've already done. And you have to be careful there because let's say you've raised your rates, right?
Yes.
You are going to be tempted to discount it, but you probably shouldn't because you have changed your service likely with the rate change. And so that's one thing you might want to watch out for, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's just important to know like times change.
Yeah.
Prices go up.
Yep.
I think we're all very familiar that prices increase in the world.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. And I also, when you have a client that you've worked for multiple times, it's important to continue to define the relationship. I don't love working for friends. I've done it before, but anytime I've done it, I'll tell them I'm either at your wedding or I'm working at your wedding.
Yeah.
And
I think that's so important and so healthy. Yeah. A lot of people don't get it, but it's so important. I feel like anytime I've done a friend or a family weddings are the worst.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want to be there. So yeah, I'm either there as a guest or I'm working.
Yep.
And working is very different than attending.
Yeah.
It just is.
And I treat it as, I remember I had some really close friends that I was doing their wedding, and we showed up to do a walkthrough of their venue, and they showed up in basically pajamas. No judgment. I love them, right? Right. And I showed up like in a suit and like I was working, and they're like, "Whoa, you're so formal." I'm like, I'm your DJ. Like, I'm also your friend.
I'm not your friend right now.
Right, I'm not your friend. In this context, I'm going to be as professional with you as I would be with anybody else.
Right.
And I think that they appreciate that because then they can put their stamp on it and say, okay, I know he's going to do a good job.
Exactly.
So.
No, I agree. Yeah,
defining the relationship. Another thing, when you're at a wedding, mentioning your name. Yeah. I'd be careful to not mention the business.
Yes.
Right? So I'll
explain a little more.
Yeah. So for me, whenever I introduce myself, I usually introduce myself over the microphone. Yeah. Because I think that's a polite thing to do, right?
Yeah.
My name is Chris Davis, and I'll be your master of ceremony. So they know, okay, that's who he is. But I don't say, my name is Chris Davis with Wildfire Entertainment. And because it just cheapens who you are.
I agree.
And again, people are going to seek you out if you do a good job. You don't need to throw it in their face.
No, I completely agree. It just feels kind of cheesy to throw it in their face.
Yeah.
But even, anytime I'm helping or anytime I'm coordinating a wedding, people relate to people. You have to introduce your name. So I'll say, hey guys, I'm Annika. I'm your coordinator. So you want that title, define the relationship. What are you? Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
But it's not, I'm your coordinator with LaBelle Lake, blah, 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 blah. Like,
right.
no, you know, people just, it just feels a little cheesy.
The one caveat to that would be is if you are at a venue that it's known for its name.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
Like we just got back from Disney World, and if somebody said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so and I work with Disney." Like that's okay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and in a similar fashion, you know, day of wedding or to other guests, I never really mention our name, but on a tour, when people are looking for that initial booking, I almost always start first by introducing myself, you know, here's my name, here's what I do.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got to be kind of careful with this, but I like to say how long I've worked at LaBelle Lake.
Yeah.
Because it shows that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if I had only been there for 3 months, I'm not going to go like, I've been here for 3 months.
Right.
Like that just discredits you.
Yeah.
But you know, it's all about the image that you're
trying to portray.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so.
Yeah.
I
agree. I love it. I think it's also important to just be a friendly person. Smile.
Yes.
I worked recently with somebody that they did an adequate job, but they just didn't smile, and I just didn't want to work with them again. Because,
that's the kind of word of mouth of referral you want. They did an adequate job.
Right. They did adequate, and they didn't smile.
Right. But smiling is so important.
Right.
Like,
if you don't smile at your job in the wedding industry, find a different job.
Right. Well, and okay.
That's kind of a bold statement, but I think if you're not having a good time.
Well, and I don't know how to say this without being vain, but I have always grown up always getting complimented on my smile.
Yeah.
That's just, I've always been a smiley person.
Yeah, you're very smiley.
In high school, I won Miss Smiley or whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I did.
It's awesome.
But like, the thing is people know that, and it tells a lot about you.
Yeah.
And everybody that always compliments, it's so random. It's even like in the drive-thru and stuff. Like, I just get it all the time. But people are just like, oh my goodness, you are just so smiley and so happy, and that makes you so approachable, and I just feel like I could talk to you about anything.
Yeah.
And that's important in building those genuine relationships.
Yep.
It just is. A smile is friendly. Now, if you're sitting there with a frown and your arms crossed and you're not approachable,
right,
are people going to approach you? No, probably not.
Yeah.
So,
and they're not going to want to hire you.
No. So,
especially for a wedding.
Agreed.
Let's see. Anything else? We kind of talked about not giving discounts, being too casual.
I'm curious here because we just talked about be friendly and smile, but then you have or be extremely talented.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think there's a very, very small percentage of wedding vendors that are so good at their jobs.
Yes.
It almost doesn't matter how friendly they are.
Agreed. But I think it's important to emphasize that it is a very small percent.
Yeah.
And I also feel like you can't, maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't think you can be the one to determine when you've reached that. Because I feel like I feel like I know a lot of people who feel like they're in that.
But they're not.
And it just comes off as very cocky.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't come off well.
Right.
It just doesn't, you know, but they're like, I'm too good for this.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think if you can say any price you want, without any fear that they're going to say no, then okay, maybe you've reached that status.
Yeah.
But I know maybe 1 or 2 people that can do that.
I know. I'm maybe thinking of 1 or 2 people at the top of my head, but like it is not you don't just decide.
Yeah.
I've made it.
Yeah.
I'm here.
And I think, at that point, if you're that good, you're not booking yourself. You have somebody else booking you. So
agreed.
Yeah, that is such a small percentage, but I think,
But it is out there.
It's out there.
So
there are some people. So
yeah.
Also, to get good word of mouth marketing, shouldn't be too casual in the job that you do. And that goes for all aspects in the way you speak, the way you dress. Just don't be too casual. We kind of talked about this, but don't advertise outright at somebody's wedding.
Yes.
I
hate it.
I almost posted a comment on somebody posted on a DJ group on Facebook, and they had like a pretty good setup, but they had their logo right over the front.
Yeah.
And I almost commented this, but I thought, no, nobody cares. I almost said, So how much of a discount did you give them so that you could advertise at their wedding, right? Because it's like,
so bad.
that's like basically what you're doing.
It is. It is.
It's not your day. And
Right. We've talked about this before, but I think you just have to be so discreet with your marketing day of.
yeah,
We have a whole episode on day of marketing.
yeah,
But even just touching on it for a tad, like when you've worked weddings, when you come and do the setup,
yeah,
you do have a shirt that has your logo because you're there, you're doing setup. It's not distracting from the day. It helps people know who you are.
yeah,
But then once you're on stage,
yeah,
you don't have like a t-shirt with your logo slapped over it.
yeah,
And even with us, we wear all black. During setup, we have a shirt with our logo that says staff or whatever. Tell people who you are. But then once you're on stage, I mean, you're always on stage, but once show is going, if you will, we wear all black. We maybe have a little name tag.
yeah.
But yeah, it's discreet. It's not taking away from the day.
Right. It's not an advertisement. It's just an indicator of who you are.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
I think that that's really valuable.
I do too.
For me, I don't typically have to put my logo anywhere because people know who I am. Like I'm loud enough and I'm I just kind of carry myself that way. There is a wedding that I did in Island Park. Yeah, Island Park. And I tend to wear kind of flashy jackets. And somebody just stopped me before the wedding. They're like, "Hey, are you the DJ?" I'm like, "Yep,
yes, I am.
I sure am."
Yeah.
So, I mean, you should know your audience and know what's appropriate.
Well, and I would just encourage all the listeners, like, if you have questions on it, listen to that episode, Day of Marketing. We have so many good ideas in there. So if you're any vendor and you haven't listened to that, it's a good one.
Do it.
So,
speaking of vendors, I think, we could probably make a whole episode out of this. But word of mouth also comes down to the vendors that you work with.
100,000,000%.
Right.
I mean, the thing is a lot of our couples come to the venue first because they're like, that's just the process. Where are we doing this? And then people, like vendors, will come to us and be like, how do I get on your recommended vendors list?
Yeah.
Because I would say a pretty high % of our couples, they just book through our recommended vendors.
Yeah.
But it's like, you want to know how those guys got there? They proved themselves and we want to recommend them. I am so passionate about not getting a cutback or anything by recommending people.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about that a bit before. But, like, I want to recommend who I know is going to provide a great experience. I don't, quite honestly, I don't want a cut from them. Like, that's, I just want my couple to have the best experience. And so your recommendation can 1,000% come from vendors.
Yeah.
I'd almost say they come from vendors more than other guests.
And I'd prefer it that way because
I would too.
The vendors see things in a different way.
Yes, agreed.
I think, when I'm looking at who I want to recommend, I'm thinking about, A, do they do a good job? Like that's number one. Do they do a good job? But B, do I want to work with them? Mm-hmm. And that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Their photos may be breathtaking, but
are they difficult to work with?
Right. If I don't want to work with them, I'm not going to recommend them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but there are a few vendors that I recommend regularly because I love working with them and they do a great job.
Yeah. Well, and I think like a good example for this that just comes to my mind is catering.
Yeah.
It's so easy to recommend good food. Like,
yeah, totally.
Good food. Of course you want good food. But when it comes to, they've made it on my recommended list, it's because it's so much more than just the food is good. Mm-hmm. It's were they easy to work with? Were they professional in everything? And, because you could have the best food in the world, but maybe it's not presented professionally.
Yeah. Or maybe it takes forever to get out. Or maybe they're difficult to work with. Or maybe they're sloppy in their dress.
Right. And that's honestly such a big thing that you just brought up is like, how fast can they serve everyone?
Yeah.
And it still be freaking delicious.
Yeah.
Because it might be the best food of your life, but if it's going to take 3 hours to get everyone through dinner, that's not going to fly.
Yeah. And I've seen that happen. The food was great, but So you got to be good at your job and you have to be good to work with.
Yep.
And I think if you want to get other vendors to recommend you, I think you should put at least a little bit of thought into how you can help them do their job, or at least not detract from their job.
Or even just how to make their job easier.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
I've had some photographers that will talk to me as I'm trying to mix. And I'm like, I'm in the zone, right? Like, let me do my thing. That would be the same thing. Yeah, literally. It would be the same thing as if I were like in their ear when they're trying to take photos.
Right.
It doesn't happen often, but at least let them do their job. But also, like, one thing I always try and do with photographers and videographers, I contact them beforehand and let them know that I'm going to be working with you on the schedule. And if we need to adjust the schedule so you can get the sunset shots, we'll do that. And they're always appreciative.
Right.
As, but that is just something that I should be doing anyways, but they're going to remember that.
Yep.
So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Also, don't leave trash at the venue. I think that's the other one.
It's like my greatest pet peeve.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Also, tag them in your socials.
I just feel like that's common courtesy.
I think so too.
But like, it's not done as much as it should be done.
Just tag everybody.
Just tag them.
It only helps you.
Yeah, no, exactly. It only helps you. If you have a question, okay, well, if you're going to tag people, make sure you're tagging the right people.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nothing more awkward than like, oh, well, their business is called this. I'm going to tag this. And then they're like,
the wrong one.
I'm not on Instagram. And you have some bakery from Boston right. I don't think this is us.
Yeah.
So if you're going to tag, make sure you have the right tag.
Definitely.
If you have any questions, just reach out to them and just say, hey, I wanted to tag you. Are you on Instagram?
Right.
Just that little effort will go so far.
Yeah.
So
it's only good. It only helps you.
Exactly.
So, and the last thing, this again could be a whole episode, is gifting. If you're really appreciative of some of the vendors that you work with, it may be worth gifting, just because you're a nice person.
Well, I don't even think it has to be that grand.
Right.
You want to know what's a free gift that I guarantee you everyone would love? A review.
Totally.
Just write them a review.
Yeah.
That's a great free gift.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you every business owner out there is just like,
they'd love it.
I would love a review.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah.
Well, I hope that this gives a little insight into marketing with word of mouth.
Yeah.
If you have any other ideas or anything that we missed, let us know.
I want to hear it.
Okay.
So.
All right. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Top Secret Wedding Podcast.
Subscribe, rate, and review us, and we'll see you next time.